Yeah, so this Fram2 mission, this SpaceX mission that sent an early Bitcoiner into polar orbit around the poles, pretty incredible. You think about this, just absolutely phenomenal achievement. First of all, that it's occurring privately, that it's not our tax money that's going to this. Of course, our tax money would be better spent on space exploration than on transgendering mice and providing free circumcisions to random men in Africa, as USAID was found to have been funding. I think exploring the frontier of space would be a better use of our money. But it's again worth congratulating these people that they're doing it with their own money. This guy was an early Bitcoin investor. I'm going to read the Wikipedia page. Gives you some background on this. Absolutely incredible, though. So this guy opened up the little uh, hatch, basically, revealing a glass, cylindrical window, kind of cupola, revealing this cupola, and through the window, he was posting videos on X, posting videos from outer space of the first footage ever taken by a human in space of Antarctica, the southern pole. So again, Wikipedia says Fram2 is an ongoing private human spaceflight mission that is being operated by SpaceX with a Crew Dragon spacecraft on behalf of entrepreneur Chun Wang. During the mission, Wang and his all-civilian crew were launched into a polar orbit, a first for a human spaceflight mission. During the 3 to 5 day mission, the crew will conduct scientific research. To some extent, how can you not be bullish on humanity? How can you be black pilled? How can you be hopelessly, doom focused when we have humans self funding missions to above polar orbit? This guy is floating around above Antarctica, taking videos and live tweeting it. This is just a phenomenal thing that this can be done. And apparently, his seat to space, the estimate was around $55 million. Nobody knows exactly because it wasn't publicized, but the best guess is based on previous SpaceX missions and stuff, they think around $50 to $55 million. And this mission in particular has got me thinking about space tourism again. I was on a jet earlier today, and I got the free upgrade. So I was able to use my hours on a plane that normally I would not opt for, kind of the Taylor Swift class of private jet. So extremely decadent and unnecessary. But as somebody pointed out, they probably just didn't have a smaller aircraft available. And so anyway, I got the free upgrade. Great for me. Uh, I'm a little jealous of myself. Past me is jealous of current me. But on that jet today, at about 40,000 feet altitude, just cruising along with excellent Wi-Fi, being beamed down from a satellite in space, and eating my breakfast, cruising at around, what was it? Well over 500 miles per hour ground speed, and with about 1,000 pounds of jet fuel in the tank, and a long duration little experience, really cool. So anyway, this plane today was the Citation Latitude. If you guys want to look it up, it was a newer Citation Latitude, and had all the bells and whistles, USB chargers, little bathroom with a sink and towel, and a little window you can look out of while you're peeing. Yeah, just an incredible experience. It for me is a really fun hobby. And so anyway, being 40,000 feet up, practically on the doorstep of space, not that far from the Kármán line when you really think about it. And I'm thinking this is just a pressurized hull. It's just a pressurized hull going at 500 miles per hour. In terms of design and implementation, really not much different from the Virgin Galactic rocket system, right? Where they have this private jet-like craft, except instead of having jet engines, it has a solid rocket motor in its rear end and its aft. And They strap it onto a big traditional airplane, and the airplane goes up to a certain starting altitude. And then this craft detaches this pressurized hull. Again, much like a private jet, it's a pressurized hull with windows. That's what it is, with windows and a set of wings. So very plane like. And this spacecraft detaches from its mothership, as it's called, which is usually launched out of New Mexico, the spaceport there. And this thing goes into suborbital space, and the people on board get minutes of true weightlessness, and they get that classic view of the curvature of the Earth that drives those flat earthers so crazy. They get that classic view of the Earth, and they get the float time, and you get good little video op before you have to come back down. And the pilots who are in charge of that are expert pilots, because it's hard to maintain their trajectory and stuff when they've got a solid rocket motor burning. And yet, you think about it, the stress on that spacecraft, it's way less than the maximum stress, the maximum strain that's put on a SpaceX Dragon mission, like this one that took these Bitcoiners to the poles, to the South Pole, to photograph stuff there. It's to me like that's way more dangerous, right? Because again, you have the strain of max Q, as it's called, and that's when spaceships burn up traditionally. And it's not the only time. They also can explode shortly after takeoff, but traditionally that's a real bad time for spacecrafts, is when they're at max Q. And with this suborbital hull that's basically a glorified business jet that's launched off of a mothership plane and then cranks into suborbital space and then can be very quickly tested. The hull can be tested to make sure that there's no damage, and they can turn it around and put a new rocket motor in there and have it ready apparently within days. That's the goal for this next generation of spacecraft that Virgin Galactic is working on. And so I look at the safety difference potentially of strapping people to a rocket and going full lit candle, as SpaceX does with their Dragon missions, which again has had excellent track record so far, but you're just doing something that's foundationally more risky when you launch somebody atop a rocket versus taking off on a traditional airplane, and then the spacecraft, disconnects and then goes off on its own. To me, anyways, if you were to do thousands of flights, you would see a safety profile that would probably favor suborbital flight over rocket launches. And so I also think about the cost, that $55 million that this Bitcoiner paid to be the first human to photograph Antarctica from space. Very cool thing. He's in the history books, and he's doing an actual useful thing, because many of us, the truth community, have become curious about Antarctica in recent years, and having some unbiased video of a flyover is certainly helpful at some level, and is new information for all of us in the truth community. To have that coming from an unbiased space tourist who's self-funded and who has the latest cameras and tech and stuff, versus coming from a government agency, which might only give us selective footage and which ultimately answers to the government. So absolutely fascinating time where space flight is getting better and better. And again, I just had this kind of epiphany on today's flight that technology-wise, the prevalence of business jets, which go traditionally much higher than commercial jets do, I was actually briefly looking down at a flight that was like off to my starboard. And I could see it was a big commercial jet that was well below us, thousands of feet below us. And so it's basically a similar creature as the Delta spacecraft, in my opinion, in terms of how to build it and how to maintain it. And the cost per seat is supposed to be, I think, around $600,000. So 55 million versus 600,000 bucks. And to be sure, suborbital is not as useful as launching somebody into orbit. But again, you still get that weightlessness experience. It's still a great postcard moment, which for many people, there are a lot of people out there who can afford $600,000 and a kind of Mount Everest experience that might end up being at scale way more safe than exotic mountain climbing. This might be a relatively safe experience that your average upper middle class striver wants for status reasons and just as an achievement and just as a kind of vacation, because you go out there to New Mexico and you train and they send you up. They send you up in the mothership. And there's some good videos of this on YouTube at this point. If you go on Virgin Galactic's website, or if you go on their YouTube channel, you can watch some of these videos of actual missions. And Richard Branson has been up there. And so I'm an investor in Virgin Galactic, full disclosure. I bought a little bit more of their stock today, actually. Bought some more Galactic shares today. Because again, I see this Delta spacecraft that they're building now. They're testing and building and hoping to have it ready, I believe, by first quarter of next year, which is not that far away when you think about it. We got the summer, the fall, and the winter, and then we'll pretty much be there if their timeline doesn't shift. But this next generation spacecraft, where they've learned from the successful missions they've already had, which again, these videos are super impressive. And they're sending, I don't want to say regular people, because these are ambitious, successful people who are going up, and $600,000 is still a lot of money. But it's not $55 million. There's a big difference. And so, yeah, I had this absolute epiphany today and ended up buying more Galactic shares because I just feel like we're there. I feel like once some celebrities start going up there and taking better social media, better video, everybody's going to want to do it. It's the safer Mount Everest, or going down and looking at the Titanic wreckage on some submarine. That's old hat. That's what elites and bored celebrities used to do. But now after the Ocean Gate disaster and all that, I don't think it's cool anymore to gawk at this wreckage. It's in the cold Atlantic Ocean. And so what? So some rich people on a cruise ship went down over a century ago. So what? Leave them alone. Let them rest in peace, So that's out. And Mount Everest, lately, they say it's covered with trash because so many people are trying to summit. Covered with trash. Higher up, it's actually got some dead bodies there that haven't been cleared out yet. They're just kind of a permafreeze. How charming, right? And so you pay a fortune to go through the physical training to do Mount Everest, and you have to hire a guide and all this stuff. So it costs a fortune. It's very risky. You can get frostbite or die. Many people have. And what do you have to show for it? Some photos of you atop some filthy mountaintop? You get that just going to the Poconos or going to, go to Vail. Go take some ski photos at Vail. It'd be 100 times prettier than Mount Everest. So that's kind of out increasingly. And yet people like to do ambitious things. There's something about the human totem, of value, where when you have enough money or enough political power or whatever it is that drives you, you want to do cool stuff. And I can't think of anything cooler than being launched into space safely and coming back to talk about it. Coming back to your family or your partner, your wife, girlfriend, whatever. To tell the tale, to live and to tell the tale. Some of these videos are very powerful on the Virgin Galactic website. The one guy was kissing the ground after he came out of the spacecraft, after the successful landing. Was kissing the ground, and you could see it all kind of clicked for this dude, whoever he is, this space tourist. But yeah, they do these cool little vignettes where they walk you through the story of some of the people who've gone up. And so I would invest in SpaceX if you could, but it's privately held. Of course, Elon Musk's, it's his crown jewel, aside from his Tesla shares. And there's no way in, as far as I can tell, for a little guy like me. Whereas Virgin Galactic is this high risk. To be sure, it's a high risk thing. It could go under. There have been some concerns about their cash burn and stuff. But look, to me, the market cap of the thing is like similar to some altcoins. And yet they're testing and building a next generation spacecraft using what they learned from their first generation, which again took up real people into space, including Richard Branson. And so there's track record there. Nobody else is even attempting this stuff. SpaceX, again, very successful, but they're doing orbital trips, which costs $50 million a seat and up. Whereas this lowers the bar to $600,000. Think about all the wealthy Chinese and Europeans, in addition to all the Americans who would potentially sign up for such a service if it were proven to be as safe as, a ride on a business jet. Uh, the technology is so similar. It's so similar. It's a pressurized hull with windows. And now with all the AI, machine learning stuff, they can test these designs out and make them super aerodynamic and test for all kinds of faults and anomalies that they couldn't test for in the past. And I'm a believer. I'm a total believer that as we near 2026, we're going to start to see more missions like this crazy Bitcoiner who is orbiting the North and South Pole. Again, first successful private polar orbit ever. And he's sharing the video with the world at a time when a lot of us are curious about Antarctica. So really cool. Fram2 mission. Yeah, that's it here, folks. And again, I am an investor in Virgin Galactic, so take what I say with a grain of salt. I still invest in quantum companies. I still obviously see a lot of opportunity there. But my concern with all that stuff is that maybe the IBMs and Microsofts and Googles of the world already have such a lead over the artisanal quantum companies, right? Because the artisanal quantum companies just don't have as much resources to draw upon. Whereas Microsoft and Google can literally chip off billions of dollars just to fund some chip project. And it doesn't even have to make money for them. It's just, part of their R&D cycle. And so it could be that quantum computing is something that all the big boys get to at more or less the same time, which to me means there's less potential upside. Whereas most people not realizing that a trip to space is basically a glorified charter jet at this point, given our current technology. The public's not realizing that, and we got a stir-crazy public that vaguely remembers the pandemic, and people have money in their pockets. At least some people do. And people want to do stuff. People want to leave their mark. They want to make their mark, and they want to be known for doing cool stuff. And again, I feel like space is just a few influencers away from everybody wanting it. And you can make all these cynical arguments. There's nothing up there. What are you going to do when you get up there? You just float around and come back down. I think so many people would be willing to float around and come back down. I really do. Yeah, I feel like we're on the verge of a new space race. Certainly China is not slowing down. China has this rocket called the Long March rocket, which seems like it's increasingly a competitor to SpaceX's Dragon system. And so they're testing out, similar launch cadence where they're going to be able to launch stuff all the time. And it's absolutely fascinating, though. And I was just thinking about it because I was on this plane thinking, shoot, I'm already part of the way to space. And it seems like Virgin Galactic has actually figured this out until we get to some exotic propulsion system and move away from rocket motors altogether. It seems like the Virgin Galactic system, for the reasons I explained, is less risky and certainly can be turned around and done more often than launching somebody atop a traditional methane liquid oxygen rocket. I'm going to leave this one here. Welcome your comments over on YouTube and on Substack, and appreciate all the recent upgrades on Substack and the recent tips on PayPal. Appreciate you all, and that's it. It's important to daydream in a focused way. This is the stuff I was thinking about years ago, except it was about crypto. It was like, oh wow, Bitcoin could really be this alternate payment system on the internet. And nobody's paying attention outside of these podcasters in LA and some cool random people in Colorado. Nobody's paying attention to this. And I turned out to be right. And here I feel so similar with space. I feel so similar with the commercial space sector. And you got Rocket Lab, which is kind of a SpaceX competitor, but they're not doing what Virgin Galactic is trying to do. They're not working on a low-cost suborbital flight for people. They're launching satellites and stuff, and doing so with greater and greater regularity. So it's neat to see this industry taking off. It's really wild. It's like something out of that sci-fi series, The Expanse, on Amazon Prime. And I feel like the jump from here to like the 2040s, when we have deep space missions and massive multinationals funding missions into deep space to do things like asteroid mine, I think we're going to see that stuff in many of our lifetimes, if I'm not mistaken.